trackless desert. Roadless. Almost unknown. Unmapped. In September 1933, two American geologists waded ashore on the nearby coast to begin a search in this strange, barren land.
On the first morning, when I stuck my head out from under the tent, all I could see was sand as far as I could see. Nothing but sand. There wasn't anything there. There wasn't even any date palms.
The ancient oasis of Hufuf in Saudi Arabia's eastern region. For thousands of years, the meeting place for trading caravans. 400 kilometers inland, Riyadh, the center of the Al Saud dynasty. The founder of this newly unified country, King Abdulaziz, who granted permission to search for oil in his kingdom. The concession to search, negotiated by Sheikh Abdallah al-Suleiman, the king's finance minister, granted exclusive rights to prospect for oil in the entire eastern region of Saudi Arabia. At a small compound on the seacoast at Jubail, headquarters of the American company, Saudi guides and interpreters prepare for one of countless journeys and the awesome task of mapping and exploring an area twice the size of Texas. The giant quest was begun by a small group of geologists. The first to survey the terrain for the slightest sign of what might lie beneath, Bert Miller, and his partner in the center, Krug Henry. Years of observation, years of conflicting doubts and convictions, all meticulously recorded.
At first, the geological search was done by camel. The geologists would pack their food supplies, tents, everything they needed for 2 months. They would be accompanied by two of the emirs Qawiya and one guide, always one guide. They knew every inch of the ground around there. They knew the water holes, they knew the places where the geologists wanted to go.
December 15th. Stopped at Dikaka patch on Sabka. Hummocky sand with many bushes and a dead pond. Mohammed says one can get water here by digging.
The patient and enormous job done with the simplest of geologists and surveyors' tools. Just over the horizon, always the hope, for the first sign to confirm the intuition oil might be there.
Stopped for the night at Bedouin camp, northeast of Ain and Tarfa. Plentiful water.
Dawn. The sand is damp with dew. In a few hours, the heat will be unbearable.
Scavenging for seashells in desert caves. Top of limestone dome sighted. Mapping, sketching contours all morning. Had dates and coffee with Bedouins.
thousands of rock samples methodically collected, searching for the face of the Earth as it was millions of years ago. Taking fixes on the sun and the stars, day after day, as they patiently map the unknown regions of eastern Saudi Arabia. In the savage heat, thoughts of shade, water, a cool breeze, dreams held in the daily breath of the mirage. Sweet water, as in the palm gardens of Qatif. The king urged them to search for this precious liquid, hardly believing there could be another more precious.
With their ancient knowledge of the stars, our Saudi guides continued to lead the way across the desert. Their cosmic sense of scale and distance, our constant help through the unmapped land.
What do they expect to find? They touch and feel the rocks, even taste some of them.
Each new piece of rock, part of a giant jigsaw puzzle. A piece found 1,000 kilometers away might be the missing link. The geology of an entire subcontinent reconstructed piece by piece.
Later on, the geological search was carried on by means of car convoys. Usually there would be 3 cars, one driven by an American and the other 2 by Saudi drivers.
Cars were invaluable in extending, mapping, and speeding the search. Well, sometimes. Now an important and exciting advance to go farther and faster into the desert.
The plane was extremely important to have as a working tool because they enabled us to look down on the regions and figure out what the structure was like. It was like looking down on a map.
Hundreds of aerial photographs, each one a piece of the Saudi landscape. Month after month, through heat and dust, the crew kept the fragile plane flying. Processing hundreds of aerial photographs under impossibly difficult desert conditions. in years to come, the caravan still played a vital role in supplying field crews, carrying spare parts for cars, spare parts for the plane, vital to the progress of the momentous search. At first, supplies from Europe and America could only come by dhow from nearby Bahrani. Laboriously hauled ashore at Jubail, were unloaded on the sandy beach at Al-Foghar.
In those days, everything we did, there was a reason for doing it, almost a necessity. My first job in Saudi Arabia was building a pier at Al-Khobar, which was the spot where we arrived just a few days before. A pier was necessary in order to bring cargo from the outside. Being a newcomer there, I had my hands full handling somewhere around 80 or so craft. The pier was a rather simple thing. We had piled up two walls, which were about 15 feet apart, and then eventually filled in between the two walls as it grew out to sea. We dug rock from the bottom of the sea by the use of pearl divers and fishermen with their craft. These men would go to the bottom of the sea, bring the rock in. So I was a pretty busy fellow there for my first job. But we got along rather well, and that was the beginning.
The pier, another step forward in the search. Regular supplies by dhow, even prefab housing and drilling equipment, as at last they decided to drill down and see what was there.
The site selected for the first test well by the geologist was some distance from our tent camp. So it seemed to be expedient to move our camp closer to the well site. Two other men and myself went up to the Jebel to select such a site. I don't know that there was any magic about it. It was nothing romantic or not one of those memorable days. It was just going to be an old rocky place to put our bunks. Having selected the site, it was necessary to have a name for it. So we consulted the Bedouin who were moving in that area, and they called it Jebel Dahran. So this became the name of the campsite even to this day.
The first rig appears on the chosen site, the geological structure known as the Dammam Dome. From well number 1, the first sign of oil soon dribbled out over the sand. But it was not enough. For the young Saudi crew, working on well number 1 was a strange new experience, learning new skills and adapting their ancient ways. But for their American colleagues, the first meager droplets of oil created only hope and anxiety. We'd been taken in by the first signs. After 3 years of slogging and 10 wells drilled, no oil. Number 1 produced mostly gas. Number 2, more water than oil. Number 3, number 4, almost dry. Then number 7. What a rogue that was. All along, we'd been hoping for the big strike. We were virtually certain oil was there. But now, nothing. On New Year's Eve 1937, though, number 7, cantankerous as ever, blew out. 1938, our early hopes had all but vanished.
When I arrived, there was a cloud of gloom hanging over the place. You almost could see it from afar. They had been working for 4.5 years diligently and had not discovered any oil in commercial quantities. They had attacked the Dammam Dome and hadn't got anywhere. They drilled at El Adel and had a dry hole. And at the time, the only place left to drill was what later became Abu Hadriya. The first paleontologist had left by the time I got there, signing off on the theme that he would drink all the oil that was ever found in Arabia. Amongst the optimists was Max Steinecke, the chief geologist. He had traveled across the peninsula, made careful notes of what he saw, collected innumerable rock samples, and with the eye of one who later was be acclaimed as the best field geologist in the world, he never had any doubt but that Saudi Arabia would produce oil, and in quantities. Half a world away in San Francisco, the board of directors was engaged with the question as to whether they would continue or not. One faction was all for continuing exploration in Arabia, despite whatever might happen in the deepening of well number 7. The other faction maintained that they had been worked at the concession in Saudi Arabia for 4.5 years, and they were simply pouring good money after bad, chucking it down a rat hole in a country half the world away from San Francisco.
On the day that oil was discovered in well number 7, I wasn't there. It was during the early morning. I was en route to Bahrain to go back to the United States on my leave. But as I was going down the runway toward the plane, an Arab came round waving a piece of paper and calling out, "Oliger, Oliger." And naturally the first thing I thought was Oliger's wanted back over there in Saudi Arabia for some reason. But when I opened my note, it simply said, "We have discovered oil. Bon voyage."
Now there would be more wells, more workers pouring into Dhahran. And a king would come from Riyadh to see for himself.
We thought, and I think he did too, that there would just be a small group of Saudi Arabs who would come with him from Riyadh. We had, I don't know how many people, nobody does, but it required a city of its own. And it turned out to be just a big picnic for the king and all of the Saudis within.
May the 1st, 1939, King Abdulaziz sets off from Dhahran for Ras Tanura with the dispatch of the first tanker load of Saudi oil.
When we got to Ras Tanura, it was early morning, and people were just waiting to see the king appear before them. I was one of the lucky fellows to have a chance to shake hands with His Majesty the King. I was very impressed by his size. He was a giant of a man, And when His Majesty opened the valve, he thanked God for blessing us with this wealth.
The day was really a great event to the Saudi people themselves. There were many people followed the king to Ras Tanura, and with the turning of the valve, knowing, as the king did very well, knew that this meant an income which would permit the king to give his people things that they couldn't afford before.
The following day, His Highness, the ruler of Bahrain, came to congratulate King Abdulaziz on the sailing of the first tanker. Thus, the kingdom had entered the stage of world oil. The great search for oil that began in the early 1930s had reached into virtually every corner of Saudi Arabia by the 1980s. Even into the vast Rub al-Khali, the largest sand desert in the world. The faith of the pioneer geologists 50 years before had been rewarded in abundance. A colossal reservoir of 165 billion barrels of oil.
Okay, go ready for shot line 23. Okay, girl, ready for shot point 25. Okay, we're good.
The search goes on amidst the sand barriers, once impassable to the early geologists' cars. The Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter. A map, computer-generated. Hundreds of kilometers of explosions every year. The endless search for energy.
We received from our seismic crew in the Rub' al-Khali computer tapes containing echoes of seismic waves reflected by rock formations deep in the earth. After processing these with our computer programs, we extract from them photographs like this one, which we use to analyze where to look for oil in Saudi Arabia.
Despite 50 years of technological advances in finding oil, there is still just one sure way. Drill a hole and see if it's there. A new generation of Saudi drillers. Sons of the men who saw the first signs of oil flowing up from the depths of their land. Mud to lubricate the teeth of the drill bit, to carry rock debris to the surface. Test cores from thousands of meters below the surface, sometimes showing signs of oil. Aramco's memory, trays and bags of rock from every well drilled by Aramco, sample cores from 50 years of drilling. Max Steinecke's intuitive convictions, proved by powerful methods of investigation. Marine microfossils. Abcake field. Depth 850 meters. Age, about 75 million years.
الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر.
The story of the stubborn well, still productive after almost half a century and more than 30 million barrels of oil.
we consulted the Bedouin who were moving in that area, and they called it Jebel Dahran. So this became the name of the campsite even to this day.
The drilling rig has departed, leaving behind a new oil well.
A pipeline is born, the first of a family, when hopes of tomorrow have not yet grown. But nothing can stop the will to prosper, and soon the line is no longer alone. Across the desert, a spreading network flows to the center and closes in. All lines lead to a giant complex, here where the marvels of science begin. Abcake. Here they bring the oil from giant Gawar and all the kingdom's southern fields. Human effort and human strain harnessed to a controlling brain. From boundless sand and surrounding fields is brought the crop that the desert yields. Through ranks of pipes in the desert sun, the stream of oil and gas flows on. Stretching as far as the eye can see, through dunes that are naked of plant or tree, the main trunk burrows through waves of sand. And a river of oil from the golden land runs to the sea, where seagulls wheel, through a pulsing vein of tempered steel. Here, boiled clean and purged of poisons, the sweet crude oil from Abcake comes, kilometers long to Ras Tanura. Here again, the technical miracle, the gleaming machines that are man-controlled, the watchful desk and the instrument panel. A welcome change from the days of old, when the drillers only had their toughness, the compass and pick and the camel teams. No mirage this, but a flash of progress, adding new flesh to our wildest dreams. The rate of progress gathers speed. Time will not wait for human need. The sea gives way to the swelling land, waves of water to waves of sand, and always at a driving pace to probe beneath the desert's face. But desert and dust are seen no more along this endless corridor, where more activity is discerned with every corner that is turned, past rooms where teams of hard-pressed men pursue their daily regimen to cultivate the desert as they will and reap the fruits of work and skill. These are the people who keep things running, who never leave anything to chance. Chemists, technicians and mathematicians, and men whose business is high finance. Saudis and other Arabs too, Americans, Asians, Europeans, and countless more from the world's expanse. What are these rows of circular shapes? 100,000 computer tapes. No modern library or ancient college ever contained such a store of knowledge. A fortune is spent to ward off rust and conquer the threat of the orange crust. A lesson is learnt in the search for fuel. All that wears out requires renewal. We have come a long way. Spare parts once borne on the backs of camels have multiplied 1,000-fold. And now the ups and downs of life become a sure advance towards tomorrow. We have come a long way. Spare parts once borne on the backs of camels have multiplied 1,000-fold.
I remember an American called Jones who visited us one night in Al-Khobar. He said, "Do you know what the company will be like in the future?" We said, "No." He said, "Do you know the palm trees in Qatif?" Well, there will be as many oil rigs as there are palm trees in Qatif. We don't believe that, Mr. Jones. You don't know what's going to happen, or you're out of your mind. What's more, he said, there will be between 30 and 40,000 employees in Aramco. We said, impossible. How could Bahrain hold 30 or 40,000 people? Mr. Jones was off by 20,000. Some 60,000 people work for Aramco.
We lived in barastis. These are huts made out of palm tree leaves. There was nothing to brag about them. There was no electricity, no windows. Can you imagine living in one of those when the temperature was 120 degrees? In 1947, during the month of Ramadan, it was so hot we used to wet bed sheets just to get some cool feeling. And when I tell my children about the living condition of those days, they said, "Daddy, stop bragging about it. I don't think it was that bad."
Year after year, thousands of young Saudis are trained by Aramco, developing their God-given talents for the benefit of themselves, their family, and their country.
Delighted to see the young generation joining Aramco with academic degrees and getting the practical training that their predecessors has obtained. Only this time it is probably, and definitely not probably, more sophisticated with equipment, with doing things, and I may want to tell them much easier than the way we have done it.
Gathered, translated, corrected, and expanded the accumulated knowledge of wisdom.
The scholars of the House of Wisdom in Baghdad and the House of Learning in Cairo,
from this came original,
following the directives of the Prophet Muhammad, had sought learning as far away as China, absorbing and expanding the accumulated science and technology that the Greeks, the Indians, and the ancients had pioneered. This vast body of knowledge was brought to 9th century Spain by the Arabs, where it continued to expand. European scholars flocked to Spain to listen to the Arabs, to translate their accumulated knowledge, and to learn from them. The Quran says, "O Lord, increase me in knowledge." That God taught men what men knew not. Arab and Islamic knowledge was particularly rich in mathematics, the basis of all the sciences. Arabic numerals were to become the key tool of mathematicians everywhere, and algebra, a pivotal mathematical advance, was absorbed by scholars in Spain and passed on to the West, where, with other disciplines, it led to a technical renaissance, an industrial revolution, and eventually to the age of the computer. Today, a new transfer of expertise is taking place. The West sends to Saudi Arabia its own expansion of this mathematical knowledge. The discovery of oil in Saudi Arabia has brought about a second great transfer of technology, this time from the West to Saudi Arabia. The computer, for example, can duplicate a complicated geometric pattern from a medieval mosaic tile and also store quantities of information. Aramco's computers is stored a constantly increasing treasure of human knowledge concerning exploration and petroleum engineering, the processing of oil and gas, and its shipment to the world.
Yeah, you can tell the King Bahrani, hopefully he'll be berthing at 3 o'clock, so if he could have everything ready for then his engines, give him an hour's notice. Okay, Roger. Thanks, Mom. This is 33 on the day, go ahead. Uptake 7, back 12. Uptake 7, back 12. Thanks, Mom. This is 33 on the day, come back. Go ahead. Ibrahim, keep checking with the lab for our tank 4547, medium, to avoid delay, over. Uptake 7. On which grade? Medium or light, over? This is on tank 4844, light, over.
One of the most interesting contrasts in human achievement in this area is to look back and compare what man was like here 50 years ago. He was basically a nomad, a fisherman, a pearl diver, or possibly a farmer. In today's environment, you will see this same man or his children are the masters and managers of an enormous industrial complex. This movement we see at the terminals, the loading of about 4,000 ships a year, is a witness to a great activity of exchange, world exchange, where everyone almost partakes of our energy. For it's to no avail if this wealth is not shared by the rest of the world.
More than a quarter of all the oil on Earth is found in Saudi Arabia, produced by Aramco. Off the northeastern coast of the kingdom, the largest offshore oil field in the world, Safaniya. The gas processing and shipping center of Juaima, collecting from Berry, Shedgum, and Othmaniya. 25 kilometers down the coast, Ras Tanura, and Aramco's great tank storage farm, holding gas and oil for waiting ships. Ras Tanura, from where in 1939, King Abdulaziz sent the first tanker full of Saudi oil to the world. 30 kilometers farther along the coast, the port of Dammam.
My first job was building a pier at the spot where we arrived just a few days before. We got along rather well, and that was the beginning.
From here flow much of the goods for Saudi Arabia's industry and for Aramco's colossal needs. Next to Dammam, the controlling heart of the giant, Bahrani. All of Aramco's vast operations managed and monitored from here with the help of some of the world's most advanced computer systems. 10,000 computer points, each reporting every 10 seconds to Bahrani. 65 kilometers to the southwest, Abqaiq, gathering millions of barrels of oil each day from the surrounding fields, including the largest oil field on Earth, Gawar.
علي انا اكتب لك الليفل ترانسميتر اللي على كولوم
17. Still further inland, across some of the largest and richest oil fields, Shedgum, designed to gather and treat the gas which was formerly burnt off and wasted for want of markets to receive it. Precious fossil fuel flowing through these pipes. Gas to light the cities of the eastern province, to distill drinking water from the sea, to feed the industrial complexes of Jubail and Yanbo, the latest achievements in 50 years of endeavor.
يتم من قبل شوي قال لنا 6300 يا علي. تحاول
راشد شو الوضع على 337 و 332؟
الفلو ترانسميتر حق الكلام.
If you need it, can you start it?
Yeah, sure. Ready anytime.
شكرا راشد. Starting L2.
From the eastern province, 2 pipelines cross the Arabian Peninsula, carrying oil and natural gas liquids to Yanbo on the shores of the Red Sea, the new port city, a new route to ship natural gas and oil to the world.
No, we didn't.
A new Aramco gas processing plant, part of the master gas system, to fill the world's waiting ships. Gas to supply the Red Sea city and its industries, a resource wisely managed for the benefit of all, and a springboard for the future of the entire kingdom. Bahrani, the heart of Aramco, a keystone of progress and a company unique in history.
Amazing. Who could have imagined to see what I see now? The road to Khobar was just a strip of sand with oil sprayed on it. And in the summer season, the wind blew sand across the track and the buses got stuck. We pushed the buses coming to work and we pushed the buses going home.
كم ساعة عندك جماعة بعد
And now, another king comes to Bahrani. On a spring morning, King Fahd comes to Bahrani to celebrate Aramco's 50th anniversary and inaugurate the Exploration and Petroleum Engineering Center. Journey in the footsteps of his father, King Abdulaziz, the founder of the kingdom, the man who had the vision of this God-given wealth bringing progress to his people. A vision pursued for half a century and realized through faith and dedication.
All I could see was sand as far as I could see. Nothing but sand.